I suppose the benefit of writing for people that you know is that you know what they can do and what they can do well. And maybe sometimes what their weaknesses might be, but also what they like. And keeping players happy is not a bad idea if you're a composer. Keeping them busy, keeping them challenged, but not presenting them with things that are just impossible because they'll hate you and feel that their professionalism has been put on the line, which is the worst thing you can do to any performer. So the more you know players, the better you can deal with that sort of thing. And I think if you're writing for players who know each other, you can, in some senses, build that into a piece as well. I wrote a piece for piano quartet for the centenary of the University of Queensland, and the piano quartet was actually in the process of being formed, and the first member of the quartet was the violist Patricia Pollitt. And when I agreed to do the piece, there were no other members of the piano quartet. I just knew that there was going to be this piano quartet built around Patricia, and Patricia was an old friend. So my piece starts with a viola solo, because the other players aren't there yet. And then the other players appear in the piece sort of as they're appointed, and they join in. And that was a very specific example of a piece where the players, some who I did know a bit, the other players, but not as well as Patricia, sort of joined the composition at a later stage. I want performers to make my pieces their own, to feel that they are theirs, and if that means that they change something, pitches, rhythms, dynamics, whatever, then I don't mind. I mean, it's good if they mention it to me or ask my opinion, but I don't think I've ever said no. And a few pieces are a bit more open, and I encourage people to actually do that. But in general, yes, if something isn't working for the performer, then they should find a solution. When you write for a chamber group, of course, you're much more likely to know the people, and sometimes you know them quite well, and you know what they like to do on their instrument or with their voice and how they sound, and the more you can know about the fact that this particular clarinetist has a particularly rich bottom register, for example, the better. I think you can exploit that. You know, there are some mezzo sopranos who can sing down to D. Some pieces that I've written have been so much associated with one player or one singer that nobody else has done them. And in particular, I'm thinking of the pieces that I wrote for Gerald English. About a dozen pieces. One or two of them are sort of operatic roles, but most of them are songs and with very few exceptions, Jerry is the only person who ever sang them. And so now the pieces are just sort of there and not being performed. And I find that a bit sad. And I don't know whether it's because there aren't that many tenors around who do concerts. It could be that. I think in Australia, I think most classical singers want to be opera singers and don't actually have much interest in singing songs. So it's possibly that. But it's also maybe that the pieces are associated with this famous and very distinctive singer, and that others are a bit shy of going there. And there's this kind of sometimes there's a kind of exclusivity anyway. I mean, you write a piece for some organisation, and they actually send, in the contract you have to say, you give them permission to perform it for X number of years, and no one else is allowed to. Well, If it's in the contract, it's in the contract. But on the whole, I think the more people who play a piece, the better. And the composer always learns from hearing a piece performed by somebody different, because they always find something new in it. I mean, you learn all the time from hearing your music performed. Performers find things that you didn't know you'd put there. There's a story, I'm going to name drop now. John Lill, the pianist, told me this story in an interview on the music show of Beethoven with a string quartet, and one of the players says, "There's this accent on this note. Should there be one on the next note as well?" And Beethoven said, "I don't know." And I've always thought that was, I've taken heart from that. If Beethoven doesn't know what he meant a few days later, then why should any of us?